Did you know that if you wear a mask when you're out in public, you actually don't have a functioning brain? Think about it. It's very deep.
Year 2020
Obedience, of course.
For those that believe obedience is a high virtue.
No. First of all, no. It's not about obedience. It's about doing what makes sense. Right off the bat. It's not about obedience. The premise is so faulty here. Lockdown. The dark side of history. I was very hopeful for this video, actually. I was like, hey, maybe we're gonna see some actual, like, another pandemic that they instituted lockdowns and they had a bunch of adverse effects of that, you know, a retrospective of something like that, you know? But what we got was very disappointing, to say the least.
The go along to get along sentiment that began as a seemingly innocent response to an unknown viral enemy in late winter began to take on a new tone by early spring. 2 weeks to flatten the curve in order to give hospitals a chance to organize for what was projected to be an overwhelming number of patients turned into something more permanent.
It did turn into something more permanent. But guess what? There's a new curve. There's a new peak. I don't know what we could have changed too much in the summer, but right now, this is not a good time to come out with this because guess what? Hospitalizations are rising. We're running out of beds in the ICU. It's not good, you know?
Lockdowns, heated by the urgent warnings and pressure from China, were mimicked first in Italy and then spread, like a plague, to the rest of the Western world.
Unlike the actual plague.
Men in white coats stepped onto the podium, former strangers who did not bother to introduce themselves, but instead began by telling us to be comforted by their presence.
Is that not introducing themselves? My name and my position, is that not enough? I don't get it.
And they were the experts.
They are the experts! What are you talking about? They are the experts! Who is the expert if they're not the experts? Because it's a new virus, maybe they're not like experts, but they're as close to experts as you can possibly be. Is that not obvious?
Two groups, the teachers and the learners.
We wanted to find out just what affect different people.
Wow, he's tall. He looks tall at least. Wait, let's listen to his. I was listening. I always lean in when I'm trying to hear something. I mean, the audio's coming out of here.
They dutifully followed the instructions of the whitecoats and began to adjust to the strange experiment.
I just want to say off the bat, like, I know this experiment, and this is the stupidest analogy ever, dude. Anyway, let's just keep going. I'll elaborate.
The teachers, like good pupils, adhered closely to the words of the whitecoats and looked to them reassuringly to keep doing what they were doing. They proudly played their part, conforming to the rules and regulations set by the whitecoats. They adapted to their new positions as educators to their counterparts, and continued to point out, with ever-increasingly painful punishments, when the learners said the wrong things.
The learners aren't saying the wrong things. The learners aren't being punished for not saying the right things. They're not wearing their masks and then saying, I probably shouldn't be wearing this mask if I was being a rational person. No one's getting punished for that. They're getting punished for putting other people's lives at risk. And you don't get to do that. You get to say the wrong answer to a question, and you shouldn't be shocked for that, you know? So that's why this is a stupid analogy. It's like, from the beginning, it just doesn't work.
That guy's hollering that. Continue, please. Go on.
Yes, continue, please. Please continue to wear your masks and tell people to wear their masks. That's the analogy, right? But we actually know why we're doing that. This guy doesn't know what he's doing or why he's doing it. He's just saying, experiment time. We need to experiment. Experiment. Go on. We need the data. Why do I need to shock the dude? That doesn't make any sense. Guess what does make sense? Wearing a mask to stop respiratory droplets from spreading? Is that just blind obedience to you? If it is, you have no nuance in your thinking. Like, I get the risk versus liberty thing. We just talked about it. We talked about it in the Dr. Mike video. But this is extremely reductionist and not a good example at all.
They wanted out of the experiment. They knew at this point that there was nothing normal about it. things had gone too far.
There's nothing normal about it, huh? Maybe there's nothing normal about shocking someone that gets an answer to a question wrong. Yes. Why is there nothing normal about taking precautions against the pandemic? Nothing normal. Nothing normal.
Some of the teachers wanted out too. They never wanted things to go this far, but they didn't know how to get out of the situation they were in.
Can't stand it. I'm not.
I can't stand the pain.
Hear 'em hollering.
I said before, the shocks may be painful, but
Yeah,
they're not dangerous.
They're hollering. You can't stand it. What if something happens to them?
Despite knowing that something didn't sit quite right with them, they still felt compelled to listen to instruction and carry on obeying in hopes that it would soon be over.
The experiment requires that you continue, teacher.
Yeah, but I'm not going to get that man sick in there. I mean, he's hollering in there. You know what I mean?
Whether the learner likes it or not, we must go on until he's learned all the word
I
pairs.
refuse to take the responsibility of getting hurt in there.
They deceived themselves into abdicating responsibility to the ones handing down orders. They lost sight of their individual choices in life.
No! No! That's not true at all. Look, this guy's saying, I refuse to take responsibility for this. Okay?
Instead, mindlessly doing as they were told, becoming complicit in the whole affair.
I'm not going to. I mean, he's under hollering.
It's absolutely essential that you continue, teacher.
There's too many left here, and I mean, geez, he gets wrong here. There's too many of them left. I mean, who's going to take the responsibility if anything happens to that gentleman?
I'm responsible for anything that happens to him. Continue, please.
All right, next one, slow. Wrong.
Did you catch that? So he says, I'm not going to take responsibility. And the scientist over there says, it's not dangerous, and if something does happen, it's 100% my responsibility. Compare that with people like me recommending wearing a mask. I'm not abdicating responsibility from myself. I mean, what? Let's listen to this again.
They deceived themselves into abdicating responsibility to the ones handing down orders.
No, I'm not. I'm taking responsibility. You should wear masks because they make sense. Because they make sense. I'm not saying. I mean, it's very dangerous, and you're obviously very much in pain. But you should do it because it's very essential for the experiment. How is that the same thing? It's not the same thing at all.
They lost sight of their individual choices in life.
Really? I lost sight of my individual choices in life? That's why I'm wearing a mask? That is so condescending. You actually think I can't make that decision for myself? And if I do, I'm just misguided? Please. Please.
Becoming more emboldened with their unprecedented new reign of authority and the consent of the majority, the whitecoats pushed on harder. They kept the narrative going, imposing harsher conditions on all involved in the experiment, and encouraged the teachers to punish the learners if they continued to get it wrong.
Well, I'm telling you the answer, and you're deliberately getting it wrong. Even if this was like if it was like 1-to-1 the same. I'm telling you, this is the answer, this is what you're supposed to do, and you're saying, no! It's not the same thing.
At this point, the atrocious results of this experiment were impossible to ignore. The learners began to protest more loudly.
That's not real, by the way. The screams aren't real. It's just a recording. So, what are the atrocious results exactly? I mean, if we're assuming this is a great analogy, what's the problem here? No one's getting hurt.
They were fighting for their livelihoods, their freedom, their pulse.
They were fighting for their pulse. Huh? Really? I mean, if they are, it seems like we have a common goal here, don't we? I feel like both sides are trying to do that if that's the case. But if it's just the freedom, then...
At this point, they had given up all responsibility for the outcome of their involvement, becoming completely submissive to authority, as their fellow man's cries became inaudible to them.
Continue. The next word is green, please.
Hey, it's
The
Toronto.
new normal, affirmed by the consent of the majority, the whitecoats successfully created a cognitive dissonance so strong in the population that they could no longer clearly see the difference between right and wrong.
I don't get no answer, no noise. Something I think has happened to the gentleman in that side.
We must continue. Go on, please.
You're gonna keep giving what, 450 volts every shot now?
That's correct. Continue. The next word is white.
White, 450 volts.
With a distorted sense of reality and loss of
Did you see what they just insinuated, by the way?
a distorted sense of reality and loss of ownership over one's own identity.
A loss of ownership over one's identity. Getting your temperature checked. Okay. Not that getting your temperature checked actually means that much, by the way. First of all, you don't have to have a fever to have COVID. That's just number one, or spread COVID at all. But like multiple times, they've checked my temperature when I'm going in somewhere, and it's like 34 or something, and they're like, okay, good. That's not correct, buddy boy. It's not 34 degrees Celsius.
Now easy to suggest that what was true yesterday was no longer allowed to be remembered today.
What?
With all of the old systems being replaced by the use of masks, social distancing, the new normal, bubbles, online classrooms, isolation and fear, snitching and social unrest, it would leave this traumatized control group reeling from something they did not sign up for. What was happening to society? What was wrong with these people? How did things completely and inexorably fall apart in such a short amount of time? Were the teachers evil? Were the learners deserving to be punished? Was there something wrong with either group? Or were they purposefully manipulated like puppets in order to play out a scenario that they were not psychologically prepared to handle?
Really? Oh my god. Seriously, so condescending. I was purposely manipulated like a puppet, huh? Okay, buddy. This is not... Look, listen. Ivor Cummins, you have a bunch of good stuff. Honestly, some of your work, I pretty much like. But this is not the way to go about making your argument. This is just congratulating yourself. This is you. They need to learn to talk with people, not to people. There we go. That's it. That's what I'm talking about. I mean, I guess I'm talking to people right now, but it's in reciprocation. I've talked with many people, and I've explained my position while also understanding the other side's position many a times. But I can't really do that when this is the attitude you have, you know? I literally just did that with Dr. Mike's video half an hour ago, so...
All right, excuse me, teacher. We'll have to discontinue the experiment. I'd like to ask you a few questions, if I may.
How do you feel?
I feel all right, but I don't like what's happened to that fellow in there. He's been hollering and we had to keep giving him shots. I didn't like that one bit. I mean, he wanted to get out and he just kept going, kept throwing 450 volts. I didn't like that. He wouldn't even look at him that shit.
Well, who was actually pushing the switch?
I was. But he kept insisting. I told him no, but he said he's got to keep going. I told him it's time we stopped when we got up to 195, 210 volts.
But why didn't you just stop?
He wouldn't let me. I wanted to stop.
The momentum.
Honestly, I get where the dude's coming from. The scientist said it's not dangerous. What am I supposed to believe then? He's insisting that it's not dangerous, and if you believe it, then you're gonna keep doing it. Just because you don't like it doesn't mean you're gonna quit. I mean, maybe you could have said, "Hey, if it's so important, do it yourself." You know, you could have done that. You could have just stopped. But also, not stopping is very understandable.
Of 2020's psychological experiment, combined with what Carl Jung might have referred to as the collective unconscious shadow of contemporary society, bring to mind a quote by Alexander Solzhenitsyn, noble author of the Gulag Archipelago. If only there were evil people somewhere insidiously committing evil deeds, and it were necessary only to separate them from the rest of us and destroy them.
That's pretty profound. I like that. Good one. I like that. That's really good. If
The
only.
line dividing good and evil cuts through the heart of every human being. And who is willing to destroy a piece of his own heart?
Many people, not knowing much about the experiment, claim that subjects who go to the end of the board are sadistic. Nothing could be more foolish as an overall characterization of these persons. The context of their action must always be considered. The individual, upon entering the laboratory, becomes integrated into a situation that carries its own momentum.
Yes, that's what this video is doing. It's having empathy and sympathy for us. Thank you, oh noble people that understand us, that recommend wearing masks. Thank you. You understand us. We are being manipulated. It's just the momentum. We're going with the flow, baby.
As I observe them in the laboratory, are disturbing. They raise the possibility that human nature cannot be counted on to insulate men from brutality and inhumane treatment at the direction of malevolent authority. A substantial proportion of people do what they are told to do, irrespective of the content of the act and without limitations of conscience, so long as they perceive that the command comes from a legitimate authority.
Yeah, that's fair. That is fair. It's hard to say no to someone with power, you know? I don't know why that's the case, but it is. It really is. That's a fair point. But it's not analogous to this situation because we don't want to say no. We have our free will. And guess what? We don't want you risking our own safety. Why is someone else taking a risk and risking my safety? Why? Why is that okay? Why do you get to run a stop sign? Oh, wait, you don't? Wait, you can't run red lights? Whoa. Civil obedience. You brainwashed individuals that can't say no to authority. What are you... Bring me authority right now. I want to run red lights right now. No one's gonna stop me. No one's gonna punish me for running a red light. Oh, no.
Is it possible that a malevolent authority could exist, not only in the history books, but in the very present times?
Yes, it is possible. But that does not mean whenever the authority says something that it's wrong. You know, this isn't really a good point you're making.
Is it possible that you might not know what was actually going on?
Yes, it's possible.
That you might have the wool pulled over your eyes?
Maybe. Maybe you have the wool pulled over your eyes. What are you proving here by just saying these? Who says what you're thinking is correct? No one? Except for you? Okay, cool. I trust you implicitly.
The trust in higher authority you took for granted might be wielded as a weapon against you.
Perhaps.
In this study, an anonymous experimenter could successfully command adults to subdue a 50-year-old man and force on him painful electric shocks against his protests. One can only wonder what government, with its vastly greater authority and prestige, can command of its subjects.
Yeah, like Nazi Germany. That's definitely what the life is like right now. It is like Nazi Germany. Good job. I'm afraid to say I found the root cause of all of your problems in life. It seems like you're not following me on Twitch. Rookie mistake. That's all right. But let's go fix that for you, all right? Link in the description.